Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is your host with the most, Avery LR32 here, and destroy the ever-living Blue Eyes Boo-Boo stain off that like and subscribe button. As we climb even higher, the 1,500 ladder, we're only 28 subscribers away from 1,600. I really do appreciate all the love and support. And welcome back to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Blue Eyes Prime Might deck / Blue Eyes Magia / whatever version of Blue Eyes you want to play. And as always, I apologize for all the ads. Dueling Book is really garbage about that. But I want to talk about this deck because over a week ago or so now, at the time of recording this video, I made a video talking about how the new Blue Eyes deck is absolutely dog water, and I actually got some hate for it. And so after thinking about it for a couple of days, I'm like, you know what? Let's turn this into a Yu-Gi-Oh! In-depth episode where we will go in depth, we will show the combos, we will show the issues with the deck, and then from there, the player base can make a decision on what it is that they want to do. Also, if you are one of the apparently many people out there who have been paying out the yin-yang for Dragon Master Magia, you don't need to play that card. In fact, you shouldn't be playing Master Magia, or Magia, however the hell it's pronounced, because it's dog water, it's crap, because of all of the extra bricks you have to play in the deck. And on top of that, Nibiru is a card, Mulch Armies are cards. It makes trying to make Magia very, very difficult. So we're going to be going through all that more, the combos, choke points, the many fucking choke points that this deck has, and more. So be sure to sit back, relax. Be sure to save this video to your watch later in case you need, I don't know, go to work and then come back later that night and finish watching it, because it will actually, at least it should, unless YouTube's acting up, it will save your spot when you save it to your watch later playlist. So let's go ahead and just dive into the deck list first. This deck list is by no means perfect. I kind of just quickly put this together from a build that I had on Yugioh Pro just to have something on the books in Dueling Book, because I actually didn't have a build. But this is a good standard build to start off with, especially if you're just learning the ropes of the deck, and then you can kind of branch off from there. So let's go ahead and just dive onto the deck list, and then we will go from there. So we're playing 3 copies of Ash, 1 Magnamut, 3 Valor, because you can search it on the non-once per turn with Sage, and it technically is a combo starter. We got 3 Maiden of White, 3 Fualos, 2 Nibiru, 3 Ether Barrel, 3 Sage, and then the 2 Blue Eyes, aka the 2 Brick Eyes, 1 Mausoleum, which is also brick, 1 Drill Beam, 3 Lordly Load, 1 Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons, 3 copies of Wishes, 3 Dominus Purge, 3 Imperm, 1 Majesties, which is a brick, and 1 True Light, which is also kind of a brick. You see where I'm going with this? And then for the extra deck, we're playing 1 Tyrant, 1 Neo Blue Eyes, 2 copies of Spirit. I don't feel like you need 3, but a lot of builds play 3 because, I don't know, reasons. 1 Ultimate Spirit, 1 Cosmic Blazar, 1 Crimson Dragon, 1 Cipher Divine Dragon, 1 Access Code, 1 Heavenly Seals, 1 Lina, 1 Little Knight, 1 Celine, and then the 2 copies of Spirit with Eyes of Blue. The extra deck is very malleable. That's one really nice thing about this extra deck, is that you're not like Fiendsmith Rizal, where you're basically having to cut out a kidney from your body just to get a card out of your extra deck to make space. It's so jam-packed tight that you don't have a lot of room to breathe. Whereas this you do. Like if you want to play an access code package, you can go for Lina, get a light out of the graveyard, make a Celine, go an access code, all that sort of jazz. You could even cut Little Knight. You could play Sky Crisis instead of access code. You don't have to play the Cosmic Blazar package, which I actually don't think you should be, in all honesty. But we're going to be getting into all that. So I want to talk about the pros, not to sound like a dick, but I want to talk about the pros first instead of the cons, because there's a lot less pros compared to the cons. So first of all, the structured deck itself is one of the best we've seen in a couple of years. Normally, I make videos like, do not buy, say, Trap Trick structure deck. That really blew up. Do not buy the Dark World structure deck. That one also blew up because that was around the time that Tier Element was Tier 0. And I was saying how if you buy the Dark World structure deck and you're a little Timmy, you're going to be crapping all over the floor and being pissed off and never wanting to go back to locals because you got blown out by Tier Elements because you made them discard a card. All that besides the point. What I'm saying is that I've made videos in the past talking about not buying certain products. But this is one where I couldn't really make a video about that because there was so many great things going for this structure deck. You got 3 Sage with Eyes of Blue out of the gate in one structure deck. You play 3. That's really good. You got 2 Valors in one structure deck. Obviously, you didn't get the Fualoses, but this is assuming that you're not on a budget. You got a Nibiru. You got 1 Ash. You got 1 Imperm. So you buy 3 of these, you slap them together. Before you know it, you've got Ash, Nib, Valor, and Imperm all in the same deck out of one structure deck. that is really amazing for people that are on a budget. Also, including the cards that come with it, like Majesty, True Light, all that good stuff. You can make a pure Blue Eyes strategy just out of the structure decks if you're on a budget and you just want to go to locals. Emphasis on just go to locals. And then obviously, if you've got money to spend, you can go out for the Ether Barrels, the Lordly Loads, the Flawlesses, all that good stuff. Magnamuts are a few bucks as well. You get where I'm going with this. Same thing for the extra deck. You can go out and spend a little bit more of that cash money if you want to take it seriously. That is pretty much where the pros end. Outside of Sage being a non-once per turn, only on normal summon, not special summon, but only on normal summon, it can add you a level 1 Light Tuner from deck to hand. So it can add you Valor. Since the Mausoleum gets you an additional normal summon of a level 1 Light Tuner, you can normal summon Sage twice. You can get 2 copies of Valor. That's kind of cute. You can also normal summon Valor, go into the Spirit. Spirit gets you to Mausoleum. You use the Mausoleum to dump a Blue Eyes. You can kind of get a combo going from there. But again, outside of those niche little things, that's really where it ends. And I hate to say this, and maybe I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but outside of maybe Exodia, I think that this is the worst Yu-Gi-Oh deck I have shown off in the in-depth series. Rescue Ace, far better. Snake Eyes, far better. What else have I shown on the in-depth series? Rizal, far better. Detonator eats this deck for fucking breakfast and lunch, and even as brunch when he's going out with all the girlfriends. Like, it's absolutely insane. Moving on to the cons, though, since I'm kind of getting ahead of myself by saying that, there's a reason why a lot of people call Blue Eyes decks Brick Eyes. Let's compare this to another Primite deck, Primite Fiendsmith, that did well at YCS Orlando, where it was playing vanillas like our homie Valley D was playing Luster Dragon of all things and White Duston. Or like the build that got, I believe it was top 64, was playing Alexandrite Dragon and White Duston. You had 2 vanilla monsters that you could normal summon and at least do something with, whether it was in the form of normal summoning Luster Dragon and then having Dragon's Bind set in the back row, which is basically Vanity's Emptiness 2.0. You can't do that in this deck. If you open up the Blue Eyes with, say, like 3 hand traps, say Ash, Fua, and Nib, you're crapping all over the floor because you can't do anything with those. If you open up White Duston with, say, like 4 hand traps, you're not upset because you can normal summon the White Duston, you can go into Fiendsmith Requiem, and you have full Fiendsmith combo. And I'm sure there's going to be some purists out there saying, well, you shouldn't be playing Fiendsmith and Blue Eyes and Look, there's a budget version of this deck. We're not talking about that, right? We're a competitive channel for a reason. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're a Blue Eyes fan and you want to take the deck as seriously as you possibly can and be as competitive with it as possible. And you have the budget options for locals. But if you are taking this deck to a regional or to a YCS, you are going to realize whether it's a 40 card deck, 45 card deck, 50 card build, whatever the case it may be, you're going to run into cases where you brick on 1 or 2 Blue Eyes. Oh, well, Avery, I'll just play 1. Okay, and then it gets Bysteeled. What then? And that's the next point I want to make is that look at the attributes. You're playing majority as fucking lights in a format where Bysteals are running rampant to stop Fiendsmith cards, to stop Rizal, to stop Malice to a lesser extent, but Malice plays a bunch of Bysteel cards depending on the build. So you end up running into an issue, which this is something that we actually haven't seen in a while in the TCG, but what I call OCG syndrome, where a deck does well in the OCG, and then we think, oh, it's going to do well here in the TCG. We start practicing with it, and then we realize, wait a minute, our formats are so vastly different that you end up running into an issue where because the ban lists are so different and the card pool is different, it makes certain decks unable to be successful. When you look at the OCG format, they have Bysteel, Magnamut, Jerusalem, and Baldric all at 1. I believe Soroyner is also at 1, but I could be wrong. But let's just assume that it's at 1. That means you're at most playing 4 Bysteel hand traps, right? You've got 4 one-ofs in your deck. Whereas we may see 9 or even 11 Bysteals in some main decks of certain builds, whether it's Malice, Rizal, whatever, depending on the build. So that instantly is just kneecapping Blue Eyes before you've even seen your 5 cards. On top of that, the amount of bricks you have to play in relation to the other best decks in the format is so much higher. Now you may say, well, Avery, Fiendsmith Rizal plays a brick, right? You don't want to see the Lurie. You don't want to see the Fiendsmith in Paradise. Things like that. You don't even really want to see the Lacrima, even though the Lacrima is still full combo. So is the Lurie, because you can summon it, make Requiem, and the whole 9. I want us to go through and look at the bricks, right? Boom. Boom. This is a brick. This is a brick. This is a brick. You are already at Exodia territory levels of bricks because you don't want to see the fucking 5 pieces of Exodia. You want to be hitting them with the Wedju Temple and all that, right? Technically, opening double nib is also a brick, which is why we're only on 2 nibs, because it lessens the chance of seeing double nib in your hand as compared to playing 3 nib. But let's say you don't count nib. You've got 5 cards in here that don't do a damn thing. Now, you might be saying, well, Avery, if I see Maiden in white and the True Light's in my hand, I can just place it out of my hand. Sure, but is that ideal? Is it really? Do you want to be using the Maiden of White to place the True Light from your hand face up into the field? Or do you want to be placing it from your deck face up on the field, thus deck thinning you by 1? Do you want to open up the Majesty and just hard set the card? Or do you want to use True Light to set the Majesty if for whatever reason you don't need to go for wishes to get you to roar or what the hell ever, right? So these 5 cards are bricks. Now you could say, well, I'll increase the deck count to 45 or 50. Sure, but what other engine cards are you really playing? Like, if you look at Fiendsmith Rizal, on average, Fiendsmith Rizal plays like 17 starter cards between the Fiendsmith package and the Rizal package, even on 42 cards. This, your starters per se are, I guess, 3 Veilers, so 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. And then I guess Wishes is a starter, but like this is the biggest hand trap bait in the deck next to Spirit. Like, I played against a dude, he got salty as hell on Yugioh Pro and just started slow playing and stalling after he made a Sky Crisis because he knew he fucking lost the game. Because he activated Wishes, he discarded for cost, and I ashed him. And he goes, that really hurt, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, no shit, because it's a Pendulum Call 2.0. For those who don't know what I mean by Pendulum Call does the same thing as Wishes, where you discard for cost to search 2 cards. So if this gets ashed, then your opponent, since they ashed you, are now up by technically a +1 off of that ash because you paid 2 cards for the price of Wishes, whereas they just paid 1 to ash it because you played the Wishes plus you ditched a card. So you're down 2 cards. They ashed you. They're up by 1. You just gave your opponent a +1 because it got fucking ashed. So as good as this card is, it's also the biggest ash bait in the game with like 12 starters in the deck. Like, how do you come back from that? On top of that, speaking of hand traps, the deck dies to Droll. The deck dies to Nibiru, which is why I think the Crimson Dragon package is honestly garbage, because by the time you establish Spirit Dragon's going to be your 5th summon. So you're open to Nib territory. So you either have to like set a bunch of back row like Majesty of White Dragons or whatever and have a bunch of hand traps and like just pass on the Spirit Dragon, and if your opponent nibs you, then you go, okay, I'm choosing to remain in main phase and like use True Light to like get wishes and keep playing the game. But any time that you have to build a deck and say, my game plan for this for Nibiru is to take the risk of just making 1 card, in this case Spirit Dragon, setting up like hopefully enough hand traps and attempt to pass, and if they nib me, then I keep playing. So if they don't have the nib, then you deny yourself, say, like True Light, being able to keep extending. Because if they don't have nib, then it's like, okay, well, cool. I can go make double Spirit Dragon, summon out the Blue Eyes Ultimate, and Crimson Dragon, make Cipher Divine. That's pretty cool. But if the opponent didn't have nib, then, like, you were probably going to win the game regardless. So, like, if they don't see nib, like, yeah, you win, but then they might have Bystials, then they might have Drolls. Like, it's not just nib you're concerned about here. Oh, they might have Ogre. Like, there are so many things that you have to worry about when playing this, whereas when you're playing a top-tier deck like Malice or Rizal, you can kind of shrug those things off. Like, if the opponent opens up 3 hand traps against this deck, you're maybe, if you're lucky, making a Seals and pass, and it's probably more like Spirit with Eyes of Blue and pass. Whereas in Rizal, like, you're hopefully at least like making a Detonator and pass, which is more likely just because of how much gas that deck has. And the reason why I'm comparing it to the 2 best decks in the room is because everyone was saying that this is going to be a tier 1 deck. Well, shit, let's compare it to the best decks in the room right now, because if we're going to say it's tier 1, let's see it play with the big boys. When it comes to locals, that's a totally different ballpark. You can do well with this at locals depending on what your local metagame is. You just build for your local meta. But if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to take this to regional YCS and top, you're probably not going to top. And the only reason why that this is going to get tops at events is because if you walk into a 400-man regional, 350 people in the room are playing Blue Eyes, well, yeah, the deck is bound to get a top 16, top 32, whatever at that point, because the math is in its favor. Like, that's like saying, oh, 200 people went to this regional and all 200 people played Blue Eyes, so Blue Eyes is clearly a tier 0 deck. No, the math just worked in its favor. Like, that's all that means. So don't get it twisted. Don't think that you're playing the best deck in the room and like you're on copium or you're being lied to when you're just not. Now, again, what is nice about this is that you have a lot of different engines that you can play. I've seen Fiendsmith Primite Blue Eyes running around where they're throwing in a third vanilla and they're playing White Dust on. I've seen people messing around with the Bysteel cards. I saw Yugioh messing around with Dragon Link, where by summon number 4, you're making a Herratic Seal Heavenly Spheres, and then if you get nibbed, then you're kind of insulated, even though you're really fucking not. But you're kind of insulated because then if they nib you at any point, then the Heavenly Spheres gets you to like a Blue Eyes or gets you to a Magnamut to search at the end of the turn, and then you can kind of still play. But again, that's not ideal. And that's the other thing too, is that Seal's Pass hasn't been good for fucking years. And we saw this recently with Tenpai at full Power Last format, where if they weren't prepared to go first, or they didn't open up any going first cards, then their ideal plan was to make Seal's Pass with hand traps. That hasn't been enough since like Dragon Link was a tier 1 deck back in like 2018, 2019. Like Seal's Pass, if that's your game plan, is fucking awful. Like that is not something that your game plan should be. If you're going to do Seal's Pass, it needs to be because you bricked. Like even good Tenpai players were not saying, okay, Seal's Pass is my game plan. A lot of players were messing around with Ultimate Tzolk'in, or they were saying, if I'm going to go first, I'm at least going to be playing like Solemns, or I'm going to be playing like strictly good going first cards. Like they're going to back up that Seals with like a Floodgate or something because you kind of have to now. Like Seals Pass with just hand traps, I don't feel like is enough anymore in 2025, which is unfortunate to say because Seals is a good card. But if you go Seals Pass and you tribute the Seals, yeah, you can do things like then chain the Mulch Armies out of your hand. That's kind of cool. But if you don't have those, maybe because you're on a budget, you go Seals Effect Tribute. Okay, you bounced a card. Seals Effect, Ash. Your board's now clear. Now you're getting a giant detonator to the face. Okay, activate Lorely Load, chain detonator to pop. Activate True Light Effect, chain detonator to pop. Also, all your monsters die. So, what you gonna do now, pimp? You gonna finish that pizza? It's rough, guys. It's really, really rough. And even the difference with something like Exodia is the fact that, yes, you had 5 bricks in the deck, but you had enough room in the deck for really good hand traps that were turn skips, whether it was playing like 9 Mulch Armies with 3 shifters, playing 6 Mulch Armies with 3 shifters. Like it was a shifter deck. So like just being able to shifter people was really good because if you saw 1 Millennium Ankh, you were basically just going to win the game going second. You don't have a normal summon in the deck, so you can get away also with playing like Lava Golem or, you know, any other card that takes up your normal summon, which even now they're getting that new Gaia the Fierce Knight thing and like I think Justice Hunters or whatever. So that deck just gets better. But besides the point, it had different tools available to it that it could abuse that this deck doesn't have. And actually, looking at it now, this deck gets rocked by Droll. Like, you don't want your Blue Eyes as banished. You don't. Does this even place from banish? Hand, deck, or graveyard. So if your True Light gets banished, you're fucked. Because it's your one of. Now, you can do things like play Skill Drain, I guess. But you're relying on seeing a one of in a 40 card pile. And it's not all that great going second. Especially into a Detonator. Because you know they're just going to go Detonator pop the fucking Skill Drain. So, yeah, no. Actually, now that I think about it, this deck even dies to Shifter. I can't even speak. So, again, there's a lot of things going against this deck. But I've rocked on this deck enough. Let's go ahead and show off the combos in person so that you can kind of get a better idea for what I mean. And I really want to take the time to break this down like as basic as possible because I feel like that this is fucking dog shit. Exactly what I was talking about. I feel like that this is a deck that a lot of casuals are going to pick up and think, oh, I can actually be competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. And I don't want people getting that wrong idea. Whether you're a semi-competitive player, whether you're a casual player, I want to break this down into like as basic of bits as possible so that anyone can get a common understanding as to what I'm talking about. So this is a perfect example. 4 hand traps, that's pretty good. That's cool. You won the die roll, you opted to go first. This Blue Eyes does nothing. Now again, in Primite Fiendsmith, what if this was a White Dust on? You could summon the White Dust on, you could go into Requiem, and you have full Fiendsmith combo. Now you're setting up a Wave High King potentially with 4 hand traps. That's insane. 4 unique hand traps. Let's say the Dominus Purge was a Veiler instead, because obviously you're not going to be playing Dominus Purge with a Fiendsmith engine, but you get my point, right? So let's say that this was a Veiler. 4 unique hand traps backed up with a Wave High King. Holy balls! I do that shit all the time in Rizal. Like, that's crazy. That's potentially 6 interruptions, 2 with the Wave High King, and then your 4 hand traps. And like, if they, I don't know, out your Wave High King with like an X Rizal, who cares? You've got the Imperm set on the field. You got Veiler in hand, Ash, Nib. Like, that's insane. But whereas with this, if you went first, you're like, okay, set 2 and pass. And like, you're hoping that you use the Imperm first so that Dominus Purge can negate and destroy. And you hope that the opponent doesn't stop at like 4 summons. And you hope that the Ash is also enough. What's your draw for turn? That's even worse. Okay, so you're sitting on a Magnamut and you're passing. No. You're going to get torn apart at the regional or the YCS level if that's the case. Now, we can actually get into some combos since this hand's actually pretty decent. So let's just start off with the base. See, again, with the fucking brick of the True Light. Anyway. Let's start off with the Primite Barrel. So we're going to normal summon Primite Barrel. And keep in mind that it's only on normal summon, not special summon. We are going to set the Lordly Load, that's what she said, to the field. We are then going to activate the Lordly Load. Hope to God that we don't get ashed here or anything else of that nature. And we are going to use that to get the Drill Beam to our hand, which is a very good card. We're then going to link off into the Spirit. This is summon number 2. Spirit's effect adds us the Mausoleum to hand. Again, if they hand trap us, we're kind of crapping all over the floor if we don't have any other kind of follow-up. We're then going to activate the Mausoleum. We're going to use Mausoleum's effect to target the Spirit. Now, alternatively, if you open up Maiden, you could pitch the Maiden first, get True Light, place it on the field, then go Mausoleum, target, dump Blue Eyes, and then you can go True Light, revive the Blue Eyes, summon out Maiden in white. The sequencing can maybe matter depending on what's on the field. Like, if there's like a Necroquip on the field, but at that point, you're just going to like use Drill Beam and like reveal something, and depending, again, what the other cards are in your hand. So, regardless, let's just go ahead and use the Mausoleum. We're going to target the Spirit. We're going to dump the Brick Eyes White Dragon. We're going to use the Maiden effect to place the True Light. This can't be Ash because it places, it doesn't search. So do keep that in mind. And then we're going to do True Light. Now here, because we don't have anything else, we got to hope to God that Ghost Ogre isn't in the format anymore, or that the opponent doesn't have a detonator on the field. If they've got a fucking detonator on the field, you do what I did at YCS Orlando against my Flunder opponent, and you just don't even play a card. You scoop. You make your opponent wonder what it is that you're playing, and then they side deck incorrectly. That happened to my Flunder opponent. He thought I was on Malice, and he side decked in Lancias. It didn't do shit to my Rizal Fiendsmith deck. We're going to activate True Light. We're going to summon out Blue Eyes. That's going to trigger the Maiden in white to summon. Okay, so let's pause here. Look at our summons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our next plan, our next play, we're making a Spirit Dragon. How the fuck do we out a Nib? Like, we go past turn, and then they go into main Nib. And then at that point, you're going, okay, Lordly Load, summon a Blue Eyes. It's so rough. This does nothing for you. This does nothing for you. If this dies, you lose all of your cards. And yes, the Spirit can protect you from this, from losing your board. That's cute. But Spirit doesn't protect you from Nib, which I've seen a lot of, and I don't understand why. I get it. It says neither player can special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time, but Nib clears the board first. So, you know, I hate to burst your bubble there. Because at first I was like, oh yeah, it can protect you. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Tributes the board for cost. I will show myself out the door now. The summon 2 or more monsters at the same time doesn't matter. Keep in mind, it says you contribute this Synchro Summon card. I've been seeing a lot of issues as well with this, where people will tribute Spirit, they'll summon out Ultimate. At the end of the turn, Spirit's effect kicks in, the Ultimate dies, but they're like, oh hey, Ultimate tags back into the Spirit. Then they're like, okay, cool, tribute to someone else. No. It's no longer considered a properly Synchro Summon card, as it was summoned back from the graveyard. When you summoned it from the extra deck before you tagged into Blue Eyes Spirit or Crimson Dragon, whatever, it was considered a Synchro Summon card. It left the field. It is now in a new location in the board. It is now no longer considered a Synchro Summon card. So it gets summoned back from the grave. It is considered to be summoned properly because you Synchro Summoned it first. But this doesn't make it count as a Synchro Summon from the grave. It's just coming back like you revived it with like a Monster Reborn or a Call of the Haunted or whatever. So you can't then use this on the following turn to like make another ultimate spirit. This card's dog shit. Like it's so badly worded, and I don't blame Konami really. I mean, at the time when this card came out, it was really good. Like especially because they hit everything except this, and it won Worlds. That was the only reason why it won Worlds. But besides the point, it was a good card, especially against pendulums. Like neither player can summon more than 2 or more monsters at the same time. Like you can only pendulum summon up to 2, but that doesn't matter now because pendulums are dead. So there's so much wrong with that starting combo. That starting combo is just so weak. Even if you start off with Valor, it's the same thing. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to go Spirit Effect. I know that I'm sitting with a Lordly Load and a Wishes and all that in my hand for extension, but I'm just giving like the worst case scenario. You're going to do that. You're going to target the Spirit to dump the Blue Eyes. And you hope that you have other stuff available to you at that point. And again, even though Valor is technically a starter, that it gets you to this board state. Who in the hell wants to waste a Valor on setting up a field spell that doesn't do anything and a spirit that's just chilling there? Well, sorry. You can dump the Mausoleum to Grave, a Spirit's Effect, and search Burst Stream of Destruction, because everybody's playing that. No, it's just not it, man. It's not. And again, Wishes is a great card. Being able to use Wishes to get you to say like Roar or to get you to the Majesty's Trap plus Sage is incredible. Guess what? Every deck in the game plays. Every deck is playing Ash. You always assume that the opponent has Ash in their hand. It's the new age Max C. It's the new age Effect Veiler. Every deck is going to play Ash. If you're not playing Ash, then you're playing a domain format, I guess, at your locals. It's not good, guys. It's really not. And I'm not going to waste all your time showing off combos that basically all do the same thing. Again, Yugioh did post a deck list that used Dragon Link cards. But to me, and this isn't a knock on GG. I mean, I have nothing against the guy. He seems cool. If your game plan, again, is by summon number 4 or 5 to just have seals up on the table, and you're still going to combo and hopefully not crap your pants all over the venue floor if you get hit with Nib, I'm just not seeing it, man. And the bricks you got to play in this deck, with it being the same number of bricks as in Exodia, is just insane to me. And it's a damn shame that this deck really doesn't get to do as well as it could because of the fact that the format is just so different from the OCG. Now, we're probably getting a ban list in April. Things could change for the better. You could be an early adopter of this deck and really get rewarded for it because you held on to it and you stuck with it. Before Malice and Rise all got their second wave of support with, I think it was Justice Hunters, whatever set it was, they ended up falling to the wayside after the OCG's latest ban list. And the two best decks were Blue Eyes and Orcust revolves around the graveyard. Having a card like Spirit was absolutely insane, especially because you could tag out to Crimson Dragon and Cipher Divine. They only have a few buy steals in their meta. It was great. But when it comes to just the consistency of the deck and what we have in our current format in the TCG, I just don't see it surviving. I'm sure some people are going to say, well, Avery, just cut down on the bricks, blah, blah, blah. You have to play 2 Blue Eyes. If one gets banished, you're fucked. You have to play the Mausoleum because it's searchable off Spirit. If you're playing Spirit, you have to play Mausoleum unless like you're playing a much smaller Blue Eyes engine, maybe with like buy steal cards, which at that point, why even play a Blue Eyes engine? Just play a Primite buy steal deck with like Fiendsmith cards and you're better off. You don't have to play the Majesty, but then at the same time, your end board really suffers. You have to play True Light because Maiden of White searches it. Why else are you playing Maiden if you're not getting to True Light? So the only cuttable card in terms of these 5 bricks, what I'm considering in this deck to be the 5 bricks, you can maybe cut Majesty. You can maybe cut down on Dominus Purge and play different hand traps. If you cut, say, Roar, then you could also cut down on Wishes. And these 3 cards could be like, say, 3 different hand traps. You have flexibility options that are available to you. You could always up the deck count and try and do something there. But I have tried everything. I've tried an Invoked engine, normal summoning Alistair, which can get you into Spirit because it says a level 4 lower Dragon or Spellcaster. You can go into the Spirit, get Mausoleum. You'll already have Invocation off the Alistair. You can make Makaba. That's your nib out. But now you have to also have Sage in hand or a way to search it because you've used your normal summon on the Alistair. So now you have to have Mausoleum plus Sage. And it just doesn't seem to work to me. And I really didn't want to spend a lot of time on this video bashing the deck. That's really not what I'm trying to do. But I want everyone that is from a competitive, super combo heavy, I'm the best player in the world, competitive player, down to the little Timmy casuals who are going to go out. They're going to spend $30 on 3 structure decks. They're going to slam them together and think they have one of the best decks in the room, playing a Seto Kaiba deck, and it's just not the case. You're going to see the deck do well at some point, whether it's an OTS championship, regional, what have you. And I hope it does get a top or an invite so that people can, mess around with the deck and make it better. You have a lot of different options available to you, but they all lose to the same thing, whether it's playing more bricks with the Magia build or the Buster Blader build, whether it's playing less bricks, playing a Dragon Link build or a Bysteel build. But again, it comes back to, why are you playing these brick vanilla monsters with other brick cards and these other engine cards when you could cut those and play something that makes the deck overall better? That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news in that regard, but if you want to get better at this game, if you want to achieve success, you sometimes have to put down what may be your pet deck or your favorite deck and play the better deck. That's what I did with YCS Orlando. I played Fiendsmith Rizal and I got day 2, even though I hate playing the deck. I'm not even going to lie. I hate playing the deck. It's boring. It's the same shit every hand. You just hope you see at least one to two starters with 2 to 3 hand traps. It's boring. And I paid $1,200 for the deck. I made my money back and I just went and spent $800 on it. Still made profit because I'd made over $1,200 at the YCS and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I repurchased it. Why? Because it's the best deck. I want to have the best chance of success. Blue Eyes doesn't give you that. Whereas some of the other best decks in the room, they do give you that. They're more consistent. They're more explosive. You're going to get a better return on your winning percentage. Even though it can play 17 hand traps, that doesn't mean a deck is good. Look at Argo Star, currently a shifter deck. It can play 15 hand traps out of the box, and it's not good. And I like Argo Star. It's a fun trap monster deck, and I'm hoping Maze of the Master helps it. But you're not going to catch me dead running Argo Stars, all because it can run shifter at a regional or YCS, because it will not offer me the same success that something like Malice or Fiendsmith Rizal can. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Again, really not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but I want to be honest. That's my bread and butter on this channel. Let me know what you guys are doing with the deck. Is there a way to improve it, make it better? Again, this is just a starting deck list. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to play it. Guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.